heavy load, heavy load. I got rid of my heavy load. Say it again, heavy load, y'all. Heavy load, yeah. I got rid of my heavy load. Look at that lady right there. She done got a praise step on already.
Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to Making the Law Work for the People, right here on WIDU 1600 Radio, sponsored by Brent Adams and Associates. My name is Chris Winker, and I am one of the litigation attorneys, one of the personal injury litigation attorneys here at the firm. Brent Adams and Associates is a law firm that is here to help you with some of the legal issues that you might encounter, from workers' compensation, getting hurt at work through no fault of your own, to disability claims through the Social Security Administration, to compensation for personal injuries of all kinds, from regular motor vehicle crashes to medical malpractice, and various other situations where you might find the need for legal assistance. We hope you will call us when you need that help. Our motto here is, don't hesitate, call the 8s. That's 910-888-8888. That number again is 910-888-8888. We have several offices across North Carolina. Our main office, I like to call it the headquarters of the firm, is located in historic Dunn, North Carolina, at 119 Lucknow Square. That again is 119 Lucknow Square in Dunn. We also have an office in Fayetteville. That's at 1300 Pamela Drive, Suite A. Again, that's 1300 Pamela Drive in Fayetteville, Suite A. There's two buildings there. You go to the one that's further away from the road. We have a Raleigh office. That's where I am located. And that is at 8222 Creedmoor Road. That's just south of the intersection of Creedmoor Road, which is, I believe, State Highway 50 and 540, right? So it's easy to get to if you're coming from the Durham area or even further to the east. Again, that address is 8222 Creedmoor Road in Raleigh. We also have an office in Southern Pines. That is at 105 East Massachusetts Avenue. Again, that is 105 East Massachusetts Avenue in Southern Pines. It's a beautiful area down there. Stop by and say hi to Meredith. And then we also have, a lot of people do not know this, but we have a location in Clinton as well. And that one is one that is, I guess, kind of new, but you need to call and make an appointment to make sure that we have someone there. And that is located at 110 East Main Street, Suite 103. Again, that's 110 East Main Street, Suite 103 in lovely Clinton. There's a really good bakery that's not far from there. So stop by, say hi to us, help us take care of your business, and have a tasty baked good. Okay, as I said, my name is Chris Winker. I am one of the PI litigation attorneys here in the firm. But let me talk a little bit more about Mr. Adams, the founder of the firm and the one whose name is on everything. Brent Adams has practiced law for over 50 years. I think just about as long as I've been alive, he has been practicing law. During this time, he has authored several books. Some of those titles are 10 Costly Mistakes That Can Wreck Your North Carolina Case. Another is How to Get Top Dollar for Your Workers' Compensation Claim. And then there's The Truth About Medical Malpractice Claims. Now, each of these books is available on Amazon.com or other places that you may look online to buy books. But if you call our office by calling the 8s, 910-888-8888, 910-888-8888. And if you tell us you're a faithful listener of WIDU 1600, we will follow up with a copy of one of Mr. Adams's books. And if we could catch him while he's busy with all of his other projects, his works and the seminars that he goes to and the litigation that he does, he's a very busy man. But if we can catch him, maybe we can get him to sign one of them, and we'll send that off to you. Again, just dial the 8s, 910-888-8888. So again, my name is Chris Winker, and I am going to talk today a little bit about a subject that is really dear to me, and that is dogs. I love dogs, and in fact, I was walking with my dog Cleo this morning, and she is a sweet and lovely dog, one of the best dogs I've ever known. But not all dogs are as nice as my dog Cleo, and sometimes they cause trouble. They can get into trouble, and that is where, unfortunately, I sometimes have to get involved with a case where somebody's been hurt by a dog that's owned by another person. Just to give you a little of my background that's relevant to this, I have done a lot of work in animal law areas. That is one subject that I am very well versed in some of the states where I previously practiced. I dealt with a lot of animal cases. I've dealt with anything from little tiny animals like mice and guinea pigs up to horses, and I think I had a case once with elephants. So I'm very familiar with the way the law deals with animals, or in some cases doesn't. And I've been on all different kinds of cases, dog bites, dog attacks, people abusing animals, people killing an animal through negligence or malpractice, lots of animal injuries to humans. You name it, I have at least touched on some kind of an issue involving animals. And so I bring that perspective to Brent Adams and Associates in dealing with animal injury cases. And of course, dog bites is the one that is about 99% of what we hear. But a lot of these same rules apply to things like cat scratches or being injured while riding a horse or even just being around a horse, although there are some differences under the Uniform Equine Liability Act that deal with horses, but like a cow or a mule kicks you, any of that kind of stuff, we can deal with that. So if you have been injured by an animal and you need help dealing with that, don't hesitate. Dial the 8s. That's 910-888-8888. Again, that's 910-888-8888. And so like I said, today I want to focus on dog bites because that's what we almost exclusively end up having to deal with, even though there are lots of different kinds of animal injury cases. And dog bites are kind of unusual in the personal injury realm. There are some rules related to dog bites that don't particularly apply in other areas of personal injury practice, right? So the thing about a dog and the dog biting a person is a dog is a living creature. It's got a brain. It has its own volition, right? It can choose to do things or it can choose not to do things. Unlike a car, a dog doesn't need somebody driving it for it to hurt somebody. And sometimes you can kind of guess when a dog is going to hurt somebody, and sometimes you cannot. Sometimes it's just completely unpredictable what a dog will do. But then there are times where there is some predictability. And that can affect in unusual ways, or different ways, I should say, the way that you approach a dog bite case. And a lot of it comes from applying the rules that apply to any kind of a negligence or personal injury case to this living creature that has its own ideas. And some of those are specific to dogs. So first, I'd like to talk about the baseline rules, right? That's what law is. It's just a set of rules that detail how we as humans deal with each other, sometimes deal with our environment, or with other groups of people, like the government sometimes. But basically, at its core, law is rules. And the rules that apply to a dog bite are the same basic rules that apply to any kind of a personal injury case. Negligence is the standard that we typically use in a dog bite case. Now, there are some places, some states, that apply strict liability, and that's kind of unusual. Strict liability basically means that you are responsible for what happens, any injuries that are caused by whatever activity it is that you're doing, regardless of negligence, right? Whether or not you made a mistake, whether you breached a duty of care, if something bad happens as a result of whatever it is that you're doing, you're liable for it. That's what strict liability means. You are strictly liable for anything bad that happens from whatever it is that you're doing. And usually you see that in things like very dangerous industrial activities. You know, if you're running a nuclear power plant and there's a meltdown and everybody that lives nearby gets sick, you're going to be strictly liable for that. And you may have to pay a lot of victims for their injuries. Usually, if it's the everyday thing that you and I, members of the public, are doing, driving our cars, taking a walk, living in our houses, things of that nature, the rule is negligence. But like I said, in some states, owning a dog is a strict liability activity. It is not here in North Carolina. So all of you who are dog owners, you can feel a bit at ease by the fact that you are not strictly liable for anything that your dog does, unless you have notice about it. And I'll get to that in just a second. But for the most part here in North Carolina, you are liable for negligence in owning your dog. So if you should have kept your door closed and you left it wide open and your dog runs outside and causes a car crash as they're running across the road and somebody has to swerve to avoid hitting them, that it could be a situation where you would be liable for the negligence of leaving your door open, knowing that your dog might run outside. So that is the basic rule, and that is the way we always approach a dog bite case. Now, here in North Carolina, we are one of those states that requires some kind of notice of a dog's propensity. That means, of course, their likelihood, their, want or willingness to attack, right? So you have to have some kind of notice that your dog might bite a person. And that's where we get what is called in a lot of legal circles the one free bite rule. Not every state uses that rule, and the states that don't are kind of likely to have strict liability. But the one free bite rule basically says you get one free bite. If your dog bites somebody, the first time that happens, you didn't know they were going to bite someone. You didn't know they had that propensity. And so that one is for free. But then every bite after that, that is your fault. And that is because the legal idea there is that now you know. Now you're on notice that your dog has this propensity to bite people. And if you let them be in a situation where they're going to do it, now you're negligent and you're liable for that person's injury. So that's how the negligence rule applies to dog bites here in North Carolina, right? Now, there are some important caveats or exceptions to that negligence rule. Here in North Carolina, we are one of the very few states, there's just a handful, that have a contributory fault rule. Most of the states of the union, and by most I mean like 46 or 47 of them, have some form of comparative negligence, where you look at how the person who caused the injury was at fault, and then you compare that to the person who suffered the injury and how they might have been at fault, something that they might have done that caused their own injuries. And you weigh those percentages. And sometimes you just reduce whatever the person got by their fault. Sometimes if they are more than 50%, they get nothing. It depends on the jurisdiction. But like I said, most of the states use some form of comparative negligence. Here in North Carolina, we've got pure contributory fault. And what that rule means is if a person, a plaintiff, right, the person making a claim, the injured person, had anything to do with causing their own injuries, they get nothing. So they could be a fraction of a percent at fault and be completely prevented, completely barred from getting any money for their injuries. Now that applies in dog bite cases in a variety of ways. The most common that you hear is that the person provoked the dog. So even if a dog has a history of biting people, excuse me, if that dog was minding their own business on their own property, behind a fence, not able to get out and bite anyone, and their owner was doing a great job of keeping them under control, but somebody went over to their yard, opened the gate, walked onto the person's property where the dog is going to be territorial and try and protect it, right? That's what dogs do. They're very territorial. And walks up and hits the dog, and then the dog bites them. They caused that, right? They contributed to that. Now, in that kind of a case, they would be probably 100% at fault for their own injuries. But in any case, they contributed to it. They would not be liable. And that's kind of an extreme example of provocation. That's what we call that. They provoked the attack. Sometimes it can be as simple as getting in the dog's face or trying to pet the dog, despite the fact that the owner warned the person, hey, the dog bites, don't pet him, or even just said don't pet him. That could be enough to prevent the person from making any kind of a claim or recovering on any kind of a claim. So that is a very important rule to keep in mind when you're dealing with a dog bite case. You need to be very open and honest about your behavior just prior to the dog attack. Anything that you could have done that might have been seen as provocation to the dog needs to be addressed with your attorney. And like I said, we here at Brent Adams and Associates have a lot of experience dealing with dog bite cases, and they're not always easy. So if you have questions about a dog bite that you have suffered or somebody that you know or love has suffered, don't hesitate. call the 8th. That's 910-888-8888. That number again is 910-888-8888. And we can help you with any of your questions that you have about a dog bite case. If you've been bit by a dog, or not even bit, scratched, knocked down, pushed into some hard object, and suffered an injury from any of those activities, give us a call. Don't hesitate. Call the 8s, 910-888-8888. So that's how the law here in North Carolina addresses the issue of a dog attack, right, in a nutshell. We have to operate in the negligence realm. Instead of strict liability, there's not strict liability here unless the dog has been declared dangerous. And I'll be discussing that further a little bit later on. But if a dog has attacked people at least once in such a way that shows that they're really likely to attack people, they can be declared dangerous. In that case, then, yeah, we're in a strict liability realm. But most of the time, we're in a negligence arena. And that requires that the dog owner have done something careless, something negligent, something that they should have known not to do, or should have known that they had to do in order to keep the public safe from their dog. And that is complicated sometimes by the fact that dogs are living creatures that have their own thoughts and motives, and sometimes they behave in unpredictable ways. Nonetheless, as a dog owner, a person is required to take reasonable precautions to keep their dog from attacking somebody and hurting them. Or not even necessarily attacking. An exuberant dog who's very, very friendly and has a tendency to jump on people in an attempt to make friends with them. Now, I think anybody who has spent time around dogs has met this dog, right? The big, fluffy, heavy dog that jumps up on people and doesn't realize that he's so big. That kind of a dog can trigger a negligence action. But if a dog has never bitten anyone before, here in North Carolina, we get one free bite. That's the one free bite rule. So if your dog has never bitten anyone before and all of a sudden they attack, you had no way to know that that was coming. But if a dog does attack somebody and that person provoked it, right? That person did something that would be reasonably understood to be provocative to a dog, then that person could be precluded from getting any recovery by the contributory fault rule. So that's sort of the ground rules. That's the basics of dealing with dog bites here in North Carolina. After the break, I'm going to go through a little bit on damages and other consequences. But enjoy the break, listen to the news, and I'll be back. Again, this is Making the Law Work for the People, sponsored by Brent Adams and Associates.
She done got a praise step on already. Before this thing is over with, I'm gonna need 10 more people. Got a Holy Ghost there and listen. Good God Almighty. On a Monday!
A U.S. Army helicopter has crashed near the Strait of Hormuz, but President Donald Trump says 2 crew members were not injured seriously. Christian religious leaders in the Lebanese city of Tyre have urged for swift international and local action to prevent Israeli attacks on the Christian district there. This call follows Israeli airstrikes that killed 8 people. The North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation announced it captured 2 escaped Vance County inmates who disappeared nearly a week ago. Winston-Salem city leaders are considering a year-round curfew for individuals under age 17 to address public safety concerns and reduce teen-related disturbances. A handful of counties around the state could be blocked from using the newest property appraisals to assess taxes on local property owners under a bill that state lawmakers plan to continue debating today in Raleigh. Mike Rayleigh, NCI News.
I'm Jamie Monticelli, WIDU Radio News. The Spanish Language Serve Safe Manager course hosted by the Cumberland County Department of Public Health has been postponed to allow more participants the chance to register. The updated course will now be held July 14th, 16th, 21st, and 23rd from 2 until 6 p.m. July 6th is the registration deadline. That course helps food service professionals learn how to prevent foodborne illness, improve food safety practices, and better prepare for health inspections. Your voice matters in shaping Cumberland County's future. The Board of Commissioners will continue discussions on the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget during upcoming budget work sessions. The next is today at 3 p.m., then June 11th at 5:30 p.m., and June 18th at 2:30 p.m. if needed. Stay informed, follow discussions as the board works to finalize the budget by attending a meeting or by watching the meetings on their YouTube channel or CCNC TV Spectrum Channel 5. From WIDU Radio, I'm Jamie Monticelli.
Your Tuesday forecast, not quite as hot as recent days. A shift in the wind out of the east and northeast will still keep things warm. It's just not going to be in the 90s. Most of us mid to upper 80s this afternoon under a partly to mostly cloudy sky and maybe a stray shower. Overnight, partly cloudy and mild. Temperatures about 70 to 72. Then we're 90 to 92 Wednesday afternoon. A few hit-or-miss storms will be possible late afternoon into the evening. I'm meteorologist Chris Michaels in the NCN Weather Center.
Wake up, catch the vision, join the team. This is Pastor Reginald Johnston of My Father's House Christian Church right here in Fayetteville. We want you to wake up and join the team. Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It's good when we come together. We're one body, many parts. We desire that you wake up and join the team. It's good to be a part of Wake Up. Wake up, join the team. We will see you in Jesus' name. God bless you.
Hi, this is Apostle Bernard L. Whitfield, Jr. of Righteous God Ministries, 348 Old Wilmington Road, 910-223-7591. The pastor is Phyllis Vernell Whitfield. Our service time is 9:45 Bible study, 11 a.m. service. Tuesday night Bible study begins at 6:45. And remember, come as you are. You don't have to clean up to get up, but come see us, and we'll be there for you. God bless you. Heaven smile upon you.
Hi, I'm Mitch Colvin, president of Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory. For over 50 years, our family has provided professional services with dignity, compassion, and respect with families during a time of need. We realize funeral services are as unique as those we're honoring. We offer a variety of affordable, quality services tailored to meet each family's needs, specializing in burial and cremation services. Proudly servicing Cumberland, Robeson, Hoke, Harnett, Bladen, and surrounding counties from 2 locations, 2010 Murchison Road, Fayetteville, 1904 Elizabethtown Road, Lumberton. For more information, visit our website, www.hmcolvin.com.
I'm Pastor Jerry D. Swinney from Bethel Christian Assembly at 1065 Progress Street here in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And you're listening to Wake Up.
This is Bishop Johnny Ray Jr. of the Churches of Worship Worldwide, Apostle J. A. McDonough, 2118 Owen Drive. And we are proud to be a part of the Wake Up. Come and join the team. Heavy load, heavy load, I got rid of my heavy load. Say it again, heavy load, y'all. Heavy load, yeah, I got rid of my heavy load. Look at that lady right there. She done got a praise step on already. Before this thing is over.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to Making the Law Work for the People here on WIDU 1600. Wake up and listen to us talk about the law. Sponsored by Brent Adams and Associates. Again, we have offices all over North Carolina. Central North Carolina, I should say. Our headquarters is in Dunn at 119 Lucknow Square. That's 119 Lucknow Square in Dunn. You can visit us in Fayetteville, where I believe many of our listeners reside. That's at 1300 Pamela Drive, 1300 Pamela Drive in beautiful Fayetteville. The Raleigh office, where I am located, is at 8222 Creedmoor Road. That's 8222 Creedmoor Road in Raleigh, conveniently just south of I-540 on Creedmoor. We have an office in Southern Pines. That's at 105 East Massachusetts Avenue. You can see us there among all of the lovely trees at 105 East Massachusetts Avenue. And our office in Clinton is at 110 East Main Street, Suite 103. 110 East Main Street, 103 is the suite number in Clinton. So, as I was saying before the break, I have been talking about dog bite cases, and that's maybe a bit of a misnomer or a bad name for them because dogs can hurt people in a variety of ways, not just by biting them, though most of the time what we're dealing with is a bite. But dog scratch, dog pushing people over, dog bumping into somebody and knocking them around, that all counts as a dog injury, and I've dealt with all of that kind of stuff. So if you have been hurt by a dog or, in fact, any other domestic animal, don't hesitate, call the 8s. That's 910-888-8888. Again, call the 8s, 910-888-8888. Just punch in that area code, 910, and then keep hitting 8s until the screen is full. 910-888-8888. So before the break, I talked about the general rules of how a dog bite case works. We talked about negligence versus strict liability, what that means, how you get to that point where you're making that kind of a claim, some of the exceptions to that, the one free bite rule, and contributory fault. Most of the time that comes when a person has provoked an animal, but there are other ways that a person can contribute to their own injuries when a dog has injured them. And we can explore all of those if you have a dog injury case. Just call the 8s and let us talk about it. Again, 910-888-8888. Now, once we've established that a dog owner has done something negligent and they are liable for your injuries and you have done nothing to contribute to them, you have not provoked the dog or done some other thing that caused your own injuries, and we can say with confidence that the person who owns the dog is indeed going to have to pay for whatever your injuries are. Well, what are those injuries? What are the kinds of damages that we see in a dog bite case? Well, clearly, the most obvious of those is a bite, right? That's why we call them dog bite cases. Dogs have good mouths for biting things. They have lots of sharp teeth. They are predators. They are designed, so to speak, to bite things. And they're good at it. And they can cause a lot of damage when they do so. Now, as an aside, there is a common misconception, a myth, or an old wives' tale, you may want to say, about certain breeds of dogs, most of those being pit bulls, having locking jaws, that when they latch onto something, they're not able to let go. That is not true. Pit bulls do tend to have very powerful jaws. If you ever look at a pit bull up close, and they are wonderful dogs. They are often given a bad rap, but Petey from Little Rascals was a pit bull, and they used to be considered the family dog. But if you look at their jaws, they have big, strong muscles on them, and they can cause horrific bite injuries. And of course, being a bite, that's going to be a puncture wound for the most part, right? Sometimes you'll see what we would call an abrasion caused by a dog bite. If they catch you kind of with their back teeth a little bit and kind of scrape on you, or even with their front teeth, their canines or their incisors, like those can just kind of scratch and cause an abrasion or a scrape. But for the most part, it is going to be a puncture wound, or if they latch on and kind of pull their teeth, laceration, right? But they can be very bad. Sometimes a person is fortunate and it's just a very shallow puncture wound, but dogs can have kind of big teeth, and those can poke you kind of deeply sometimes. So puncture wounds are the most common sort of injury that we have to deal with. Fortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate when they happen to somebody, but the fortunate thing about a puncture wound is it's very easy to document. There's an obvious wound. There's a hole in a person. Take a picture of it. Or if you go to the emergency room, ask them to take pictures of it. Somebody should document that. Somebody should take a picture of this puncture wound so that we can show it later on. And the more documentation that we have of that, the more pictures, to include medical records, a report from the doctor at the emergency room, for example, all of that kind of stuff will really help us to show that a person was injured and how bad that injury was. And I have seen some dramatic photos of dog bites that are just scary to look at, much less have to suffer through, right? So a picture is worth 1,000 words, and some good pictures are worth thousands of dollars in your dog bite case. So document those puncture wounds. Take pictures of them, have people describe them, make sure that we can represent that information easily. Now, sometimes we don't know the provenance of the dog that bit a person, right? Sometimes the dog runs off and we don't get a chance to get good information about the dog, but we know that it's owned by a particular person because it's on their property and they claim ownership. Sometimes these people don't have records about their dog and whether or not they've had their shots. So if a dog is not current on their shots, if we don't know whether or not they've received a rabies vaccination, then typically we have to assume that they have not. And that means that the poor, unfortunate victim of the dog bite will probably have to get rabies shots themselves. And I've known several people who've had to have this done, and it's very unpleasant. It's usually a whole series of shots that you have to get spread out over time, and they can be rather painful because they're shots, right? Shots hurt. Shots are not fun to get. So rabies shots may be something that are in your future if you've been bitten by a dog, and we don't know whether or not the dog has been current on their shots. And so that, of course, is another thing that it's important to document, but fortunately, the doctors who give you the shots have to keep records of that. And so those are fairly easy to obtain and to present to whoever it is that we're making a claim with, right? So rabies shots are something that, unfortunately may end up being part of a dog bite case. The other thing that is often a consequence of a dog bite is scarring. Sometimes a person will have scars as a result of a dog bite, and those can be physical scars or emotional scars. And I'll talk a little bit more about the emotional scars in just a second. But scarring is something that, unfortunately, sometimes people have to deal with when they're dealing with a dog bite. So there, again, it's important to kind of keep track of the bite as it heals, right? So, you have a hole where the dog bite, the dog's tooth punctured the skin. That will be treated by a competent healthcare professional who will clean it out, maybe stitch it up if necessary, and it will heal. And it's a good thing to keep an eye on that wound as it heals to see whether or not there's a scar. If that scar is in a location that is prominent, right, that lots of people are going to see, particularly if it's a face, right, or the lower arms, those are places where a lot of times we see people get bitten and they end up with scars as a result. And that is something that sometimes can really affect a person's life, because now they have this visible scar. It causes people to ask questions. What's that? Sometimes people react poorly to the sight of a scar on a person. Sometimes it can cause trouble in a professional way if your appearance is part of your work. And so those are things to keep in mind and to keep track of as far as damages go, right? And so for all of these issues, if you have any questions about how the damages for your injuries are determined or the way to document those and keep track of them, it is important to get the assistance of a good qualified attorney like those that we have at Brent Adams and Associates. Again, if you have questions about a dog bite, don't hesitate. Dial the 8s, 910-888-8888. For a dog bite case, dial the 8s, 910-888-8888. We will be happy to help you deal with all of these issues of your damages for your injuries from a dog bite. Now, that can also include, as I mentioned before, psychological trauma, right? The scars that you don't see, the lasting or lingering fear of dogs that some people may experience as a result of that. It's very understandable and very natural for a person to be afraid of a dog or all dogs after having been bitten by one. I see it happen several times, whether it's clients of mine or just people that I meet out on the street. Some people are afraid of dogs simply because they've been attacked by one in the past. If that is your situation, it's important, it's okay, and also important to get help for that. Sometimes a good therapist, a person who's qualified to provide the right kind of treatment and can work well with you, can help you to mitigate, can help you to somehow, a little bit, overcome that fear, or at least process it in a way that's not going to affect your life completely. And there's a lot of people who have a concern about going to see a shrink, right? It's a scary idea and a scary word to go to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or some other kind of therapist to process the trauma of having been attacked by a dog. There's nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely okay to do. And if it helps you, if it makes your life better, you should do it. And then we here at Brent Adams and Associates can take that information and use it to help get you appropriate compensation for your injuries. Something that is meaningful and is able to help you heal as much as is possible. So again, if you have questions about the psychological scars from a dog attack, do not hesitate to call the 8s, 910-888-8888. Well, the last thing that I want to touch on here is some of the other consequences that can come up when there is a dog bite. And that means not to the victim, but just in general, or more more particularly to the dog and the dog's owner. Sometimes it's helpful to people who've been attacked by a dog to know that these things are happening, even though it doesn't really directly relate to their case or provide any kind of compensation to them. And one of those is what's called a dangerousness determination, right, or a dangerousness designation. And that is where the authorities, that is animal control or whoever it is that's responsible for enforcing the animal ordinances in a particular place, take action to designate or label a dog as being dangerous. And that's more than just the dog has bit someone. It's something more than just that, than just the fact that a dog has bitten someone. Typically, in order to have a dog declared dangerous, the authorities have to prove, typically by a preponderance of the evidence, that just means more likely than not, more likely true than not true, that the dog has a propensity to attack people without provocation. And sometimes that can be a pretty hard thing to prove. Like I said, it isn't just that the dog has bitten someone. They have to show that the dog has a propensity, right? A tendency, a characteristic of seeking to attack people without provocation. So there may be a situation where a person has been bitten by a dog, but they provoked it. That won't be enough to prove that the dog is dangerous. There has to be more than that. But then, once a dog is proved dangerous, has been designated that, and it's a judicial process, and it can go through appeals, and the person who owns the dog gets the whole gamut of legal protections that are provided to people for that dangerousness designation. Once that has happened, then there can be several consequences to that. Those can be things such as having to obtain special insurance for the dog. And that is important because a lot of homeowners' policies specifically exclude dog bites. Many of them do not provide any coverage for a dog bite, especially if the dog has been declared dangerous. Some others have exclusions for particular breeds of dog. And for what it's worth, in my experience, that is not necessary. There's not really any vicious breed of dog. Anecdotally, I will say that the dogs that are most likely to bite people are the teeny tiny dogs, such as Pomeranians or Shih Tzus. Bigger dogs are actually less likely to bite because they're bigger and they're less concerned about their own safety. But in any case, if you have a dog that's been designated as dangerous, you may be required to obtain special insurance for that dog. If you can't or don't get any such special insurance, then you may be required to give up the dog for euthanasia, that is, to have the dog killed, or not allow the dog off your property or outside your house even at all. There can be other consequences of being having a dog labeled as dangerous. That can include not having the dog off your property without a muzzle so that they cannot bite people. That may include installing special protections in your home to make sure that the dog can't escape. Or it may include posting signs around your property, putting people on notice that you have a dangerous dog. Those are all things that can be imposed on a dog's owner for having a dangerous dog. And then, of course, there's the ultimate consequence, which would be having the dog put down. And that is something that in some cases is possible. The most common consequence, though, of having a dog that has bitten someone is now you're on notice, right? That one free bite rule is no longer available to you, and you're probably going to have higher insurance premiums as a result of that. If your insurance policy, or typically your homeowner's policy, covers dogs, then it might not anymore, or they may increase your premiums as a result of the bite. And of course, if you haven't notified them of the dog bite, then they may deny coverage if a bite occurs, or they may cancel your policy if they find out about it. So there can be some consequences to having a dog that bites somebody that last beyond the case. In a typical car crash case, we don't see those kinds of things necessarily. We see increased premiums, yeah, but we don't see the other kind of protective steps that you tend to see in dog bite cases. Nobody is required to put a sign on their car saying that, hey, this car is likely to hurt somebody. Nobody is prevented from taking their car outside their property just because they've been in a crash. And so, partly because dogs are sometimes unpredictable, sometimes they have a mind of their own, but in any case, they're living creatures who don't always do what they're told or behave in ways that are not entirely predictable, unlike a car, which I know it's true that cars can also be unpredictable sometimes, and they can malfunction in ways that we're not expecting. But the point is that a car is much more predictable, and yet there's no warnings associated with a car like there are with a dog. Maybe we all would be better off if there were such warnings. But in any case, that's not what is required now. So there are, of course, other consequences to having a dog that has bitten someone. People will say, hey, you know, that dog bites. You got to watch out. There's social consequences and things like that. None of those are necessarily within our control as personal injury attorneys. They're not something that we can require or impose on people, but they happen. And I have had some clients who have felt a little better because they have happened or are happening. So just to recap kind of the way that this whole topic goes, dogs are not the same as other kinds of activities that people engage in, right? Having a dog is its own unique experience, unlike owning a car or a house or playing a sport. It's different because dogs are different. They're alive. They think and feel and move. They love us and we love them back. But sometimes they misbehave. Sometimes they hurt people. And when they do, having a good attorney to help you deal with those injuries is key. Like the attorneys that we have here at Brent Adams and Associates. If you've been hurt by a dog, don't hesitate. Dial the 8s. That's 910-888-8888. You can also find us on Facebook, or you can Google us. Either one, you just put in Brent Adams and Associates, and you will find us. You'll find all of our contact information, our various locations, and how to get in touch with us. If you mention that you are a faithful follower of Making the Law Work for the People and Wake Up here on WIDU 1600, we'll see if we can get you an autographed copy of one of Mr. Adams's books. And again, if you have any concerns or questions about a dog having bitten you or attacked you, don't hesitate. Call the 8s. We really appreciate your time and attention listening to our program, Making the Law Work for the People. Everyone have a fantastic and blessed day. Thank you.
Look at that lady right there. She done got a praise step on already. But this thing is over with.